Hey, what's up, everyone? To start off with the big quality of life stuff, something that a huge number of players will probably be really happy about is that the game now supports 21:9 and 16:10 widescreen resolutions. For people playing on ultra-wide monitors or screens that aren't the standard 16:9, this is a pretty big deal. You don't feel like you're stretching or squeezing the game to fit your screen anymore, which means seeing more of Hallownest as you run around, and that can genuinely change how it feels to explore. Before, if you were on those wider aspect ratios, some parts of the game would either get letterboxed or stretched in ways that didn't feel quite right, and having official support like this just smooths all of that out. Another change that might sound simple but actually makes the gameplay feel more intuitive is the inventory pause update. Now, when you open your inventory or menu, the game actually pauses instead of keeping the world running in the background. This might not matter much in safe zones, but when you're in the thick of it, especially in those desperate moments where you're low on masks and trying to swap charms or use items, not having to worry about getting hit while you're navigating menus is a real blessing. It just makes the game feel a bit more forgiving in the right places without taking away any of that challenge that makes Hollow Knight so compelling. There's also an upgrade to the input system that's worth talking about. The update introduced the Unity input system for broader controller support, which basically means that the way the game handles controllers has been modernized. And while players can still opt to use the old input system through the in-game settings if they prefer that control feel, having a more robust underlying system is great for compatibility with a wider range of controllers and can smooth out odd input behaviors that some players were experiencing. Love my controller? This might help make it feel just a bit more responsive. For anyone who's super nitpicky about visuals, which, let's be real, is almost all of us when it comes to how gorgeous this game can look. There's a new dithering effect with options to tweak it yourself. If you've ever seen color banding in shadows or gradients, this effect helps soften those transitions, kind of blending colors more smoothly. It's one of those things you might not immediately notice until you go back to how things looked before, and then suddenly you're like, yeah, this is cleaner. Now let's talk fixes to problems that have annoyed players in specific parts of the game. There was a notorious softlock in the City of Tears grub room, basically where your game could get stuck and you couldn't progress without reloading, and that has now been fixed. If you spent time growing frustrated with that spot, this little fix alone might make your next playthrough more enjoyable. On a related note, some of the enemy and combat-related nuances have been touched too. The stagger bounce height for Grey Prince Zode has been reduced so that when you hit him and he staggers, the animation doesn't send him bouncing as high or awkwardly as before. It's a subtle thing, but when you're in the rhythm of combat, those animations are part of the feedback that tells you what's going on. Making that feel more natural can help the combat flow more consistently. There's also an adjustment to Sly's Great Slash Collider to better match the visual effect. What this means is that the invisible area that actually counts as the hitbox has been tweaked, so it corresponds more precisely with what you see on screen, rather than where the attack actually registers. That kind of consistency between visual cues and real gameplay mechanics is something that really matters in a game with such tight fight design. And speaking of fixes, a charm interaction that wasn't quite working right has been corrected. Salubra's Blessing now deactivates properly once your soul gauge is full. Before this, there were situations where the logic behind that charm didn't quite turn off at the right time and players noticed it. So that fix should make using that charm feel much more reliable and intuitive. Map movement has also been polished, so panning around the map feels smoother. For players who zoom in and out and scroll around to plan routes or revisit areas, a smoother map experience just makes navigating your exploration that much more pleasant.